Good morning. This is Thomas Jefferson Unitarian Church. My name is Joe Brennan, and this is the day before the American celebration of Labor Day. And the discussion today and the presentation today will be on the reflection of what does Labor Day mean, and what are its ramifications, especially in the preservation of our sense of the dignity of work. I'd like to begin with a few words from a poem entitled, "Just Looking for a Job." Just graduated from college, and now I'm just looking for a job. Plenty of job wanted signs, mostly fast food, part-time, irregular hours, no benefits, no overtime. Diploma on the wall, BA in business, good school, good grades, good debt. But now, I'm just looking for a job. 40 grand in debt and no way to pay. I'm just looking for a job. Stores are closing, many forever. Factories not hiring, more automated. Jobs outsourced, shipped overseas. Living at home with nothing to do. Years of study, but what now? I'm just looking for a job. Jobs decrease, unemployment increases. What to do? No work, no credit, no future. Again, I'm just looking for a job. What to do? Where to go? Retrain, reskill, but for what? Everything changes. Computers think, AI plans, robots work. A job today is gone tomorrow, and still, I'm just looking for a job. We will now have the church announcements.
Welcome, members, friends, and guests to the Thomas Jefferson Unitarian Church. I'm Tish Moore, Secretary of the Board of Trustees. Wherever you come from, wherever you are, wherever you might be going, you are welcome here. Our members are challenged to define and examine our personal beliefs that help us lead lives of purpose and service. I have one announcement. The Bylaws Task Group, appointed by the Board of Trustees in January 2020, has been working on a major review and update of TJ's bylaws that define our congregation's governing structure. Members of the congregation are invited to provide written and Zoom meeting feedback. The draft bylaws and information about a town hall on September the 10th to discuss potential bylaws changes are posted on TJ's website homepage. Thank you.
And now we would like to reflect together on our chalice lighting. Darkness encloses the depth of the mind. Factory lights shine dimmer. Street lights illumine empty roads, once brilliant with car lights. Restaurant signs no longer flicker. Difficult times have come upon the community. We seek a light to lead us forth from the obscurity. We search for a light of hope, that the glimmer of light might still shine, in our homes, and in ourselves. May the flame we light today shine as hope in our lives. May we share it with our families and friends. May we make this light shine ever more brilliantly as we challenge the darkness with the light of our hope and become lights of hope for one another. And now, I'd like to read some words of reflection from Yuval Noah Harari's book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. This is taken from chapter 2, entitled Work. The first words are, "When you grow up, you might not have a job." Some believe that within a mere decade or two, billions of people will become economically redundant. Others maintain that even in the long run, automation will keep generating new jobs and greater prosperity for all. So, are we on the verge of a terrifying upheaval, or are such forecasts yet another example of the ill-founded Luddite hysteria? It is hard to say. Fears that automation will create massive unemployment go back to the 19th century, and so far, they have never materialized. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, for every job lost to a machine, at least one new job was created, and the average standard of living has increased dramatically. Yet, there are good reasons to think that this time it is different, and that machine learning will be a real game changer. It is crucial to realize that the AI revolution is not just about computers getting faster and smarter. It is fueled by breakthroughs in the life sciences and the social sciences as well. The better we understand the biochemical mechanisms that underpin human emotions, desires, and choices, the better computers can become in analyzing human behavior, predicting human decisions, and replacing human drivers, bankers, and lawyers. Tomorrow, the United States will celebrate its national holiday of Labor Day. In past years, I've been called upon to make this annual presentation for two basic reasons. Mostly people leave the city at this time, and the second reason is that this is a topic which is so difficult to really discuss. This topic of labor has always been difficult, and only becomes more so as time goes by. Today, I would like to present a broad view of the status of work and some future progressions. Between artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, globalization, and outsourcing, the future is as best challenging, at worst frustrating. As the workplace evolves, the needs for workers diminishes. While I will describe the vast scope of tomorrow's labor scene, I wish that we could always concentrate on what the impact of these changes will have on workers' self-perception. What will it say about worker dignity? How will it impact the individuals, their families, our understanding of human nature? What will it mean to live in a country where quite possibly larger and larger portions of our citizens will live with little or no work, or work that does not provide personal satisfaction and security? These are the real focus of today's reflections. From a personal point of view, if you've ever had the opportunity of offering advice to your grandchild in terms of career opportunities, I am sure you have experienced this dilemma. What should I suggest as a future career option? Go to college? To study what? Learn a trade, but perhaps there will be an excess of future trade personnel. Prepare for a professional career, but in what? Look for factory work and compete with A2, D2? There are no simple solutions, little security. Only a hope of not joining the American Precariat. What is true on a personal level and on a family level will be even more true and have a greater impact on our nation in the future. How will all this impact on our understanding of what it means by the phrase human dignity? And now I wish to recall the obvious fact that all of these celebrations that we have and the meetings that we have as members of Thomas Jefferson do have a certain cost to them. And we are still operating and are in need of basic operational funding. We have obviously no face-to-face collection. So I would urge you, if you recall, to send a check to the church office, send a credit card number to support the work which we are doing and which we are continuing to do throughout the year. We now come to a time in our service called the sharings of joys and concerns. We have not received any mail-ins this week, concerning specific joys or concerns. But it is obvious from our conversations and meetings that there are many in the congregation who do feel alone, who need contact, who need to converse, a little bit of warm-hearted humor during the day. And we'd like to to remind those and everyone that there is a coffee chat every morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, just for about a half an hour, with different members of the church. We also remember in our concerns all the concerns of our friends and our neighbors who are, because of the virus or other economic needs, perhaps unemployed or on layoffs, and are in need of specific assistance. Every week, our governor reminds us that the virus is not a hoax, that there are loved ones who are suffering from the virus. In a special concern, we note from the daily newspapers that most of the victims who are no longer with us are in the age bracket of the 60s on up. This has been consistent day after day after day. Today's paper notes the loss of 6 persons from our Kentucky community. Yesterday it was 11 deaths, all of persons who were of 60 or more of age. We also remember that we are involved in a Kenya program in which the students that we have been assisting for a number of years have had all of their schools closed, and the KEEP program is now sending packages through its administrator to assist the families while they and their children while they are at home from now till the month of January, when the Kenyan schools will once again open. In terms of needs, we also remember that in these times there is a tremendous amount of stress and tension in the community. There's also a tremendous amount of violence. Unfortunately, yesterday, that did not come to fruition, that we had a fairly simple display of public opinions without any major acts of violence. However, the Arms for Compassion every week reminds us that this is not the case throughout the entire community. It recalls for us to remind ourselves of the families who have lost loved ones through violence, including Skylar Whitney, of 14 years of age, Larry Eldridge, 19 years of age, Caleb Wolin, also 19 years of age, Velvin Smith, 29, David Boggs, 50, and Brandon Waddles, 21. All these were members of our community here in Louisville, and I'm sure are deeply mourned by their family and their loss at such an early age. For all of us who live in this community, we join together remembering that we are very fortunate to be able to continue our striving for hope and meaning in our lives, and we wish that everyone could receive the same type of warmth and assistance in their times of need. we fill our vase full of flowers, remembering these needs, both those which have been spoken and unspoken. At this time, I would like to share with you a piece that I found in the Wall Street Journal, written by Lauren Weber. It reflects on the relevance of jobs. So many people are fearing that their jobs no longer have any meaning in their lives, and that they themselves no longer have any meaning. The professional network Blind conducted a survey for the Wall Street Journal in May and found that 26% of nearly 2,000 respondents agreed with the statement, "I am not considered essential," or "I don't think I am. When I am still working, my work doesn't feel particularly important or meaningful." In April, roughly 1/4 of American workers felt that COVID-19 had threatened their job security and opportunities, according to a survey of over 1,000 workers. The pandemic has led some workers to question positions that gave them a sense of purpose just months before. The perspective of how important or noble a job is kind of changed with the new essential or non-essential divide. Companies have come to assess the angst some workers feel about the relevance and the purpose behind their jobs. Decades of research show people crave a sense of purpose to feel motivated at work. Does my work matter? And do I matter? Which is really the question underlying all of this. A few words of reflection. The most positive consequence, if there is any, of the virus has been the realization of who are the essential workers in our community. Workers of color suffer greater losses, yet continue to work. Without our migrants, documented or undocumented, we would not have fresh vegetables. No longer would one dare to say, "But he's just a truck driver," as we realize that the truck drivers are the persons who bring all of the produce and our needs to our neighborhood. Factory workers and food processors supply our necessities and put food on our tables. Store clerks risk their lives to stock our shelves and work at the registers. Nurses, healthcare workers are invaluable, as are bus drivers, physicians, healthcare workers, police, and firefighters. The virus has humbled us and forced us to learn that we are all essential. The American Precariat. In Europe, this term represents an unfortunate group of people who live with short-term jobs, without any occupational growth or possibility of growth, or the hope of meaningful employment, a truly desperate population. This isn't Europe, but here 40% of our citizens do not have $400 to face an immediate personal emergency. Millions have applied for unemployment, and millions more are facing evictions. While the Dow Jones Index soars to 29,000, one survey reported that 11% of the population, or 37 million persons, do not have sufficient food to eat. They are food insecure. Minorities and the elderly face the most severe impact of all of these factors. Jessica Bruder, in her book, Nomadland, writes of senior citizens who must continue working into advanced age because their minimum wage jobs did not provide them with Social Security benefits capable of sustaining their daily lives in retirement. They now work minimum wage jobs while living in their trailers. They are the American Precariat. The question that confronts us is, what does it mean? What does all this mean for the preservation of any sense of human dignity? Certainly, nothing has affected our labor force more than the onslaught of the coronavirus. While 46 million persons nationwide have applied for unemployment compensation, the administration has recently suggested that the solution for all of these unemployed is simply, quote, find something new. Louisville's dependence on low-salaried hospitality workers creates a real and special crisis. The virus has most directly affected Black and brown workers, both as to their vulnerability to the virus and the impact of on their unemployment. Local Ford factories have forced reductions from 3 to 2 shifts and have hired 1,000 temporary workers in order to simply meet the labor shortages due to the illness. Necessary school closures have affected not only teachers and students, as well as staff, but also maintenance workers, bus drivers, and even farmers who supply food to local schools. What does all this mean as to our personal understanding of the dignity of work? Nobel Award economist Krugman and Stiglitz warn about societal income inequality, as do Piketty and Reich. Piketty writes that, quote, in all these societies with severe inequality, half the population owns virtually nothing. The poorest 50% invariably own less than 10% of the national wealth. The most recent survey of the Federal Reserve revealed that the top 10% own 72% of American wealth. Decades ago, Harrington and our own Caudles wrote of America plagued by poverty. Today, 3 million migrant workers harvest our crops and earn just 65 cents on the dollar. Former Secretary of Housing, Julian Castro, alerts us of the impending foreclosures of 20 million homes in the near months. Our college graduates have accumulated a debt of $1.4 trillion and have no credit ratings while facing a lifetime of credit debt. Despite all this, the administration claims that we have the strongest economy ever. It misrepresents economic statistics, especially unemployment data for Blacks and Latinx. Our reality is that we have our own American precariat, millions currently living in economic desperation. What does this tell us about the preservation of a sense of human dignity? Piketty tells us that past employment and unsafe working conditions have promoted organized labor. Unions were formed in response to the Great Railroad Strike, the Homestead Strike, the Battle for Blair Mountain, the Pittston Coal Strike, and others. Organized labor once represented 30% of the labor force. Today, only between 7 and 11%. Coal miner confrontations were especially bloody, but today, there is not even a single coal miner union in Kentucky. Miners soon learned that the war on coal was really a war on coal miners, depriving them of black lung coverage, pensions, or needed medical services. And yet, miners struggled to preserve their dignity. What can be said of the recent so-called right-to-work laws? A conservative-dominated Kentucky legislature pushed through so-called right-to-work laws, forcing workers to represent themselves in their grievances in discussions against the company labor attorneys. Kentuckians have yet to experience the promised surge of economic development flowing from such legislation. Nor has the completion of 2 super bridges promoted local industry. Public school teachers realized that they were falsely convinced to reject Social Security benefits in favor of a negotiated pension system, one that, according to Ken Tobey, author of Kentucky Fried Pensions, has been mismanaged for decades, and now these funds are $14 billion in debt. Protesting teachers assembled in Frankfurt, only to be told that their legislators prohibit their wearing of red union shirts on state's grounds. Fast food workers, numbering the thousands, continue to receive low wages, no benefits, and irregular work hours that prohibit their obtaining additional work. While they are a group in the most need, they are among the most difficult to unionize. So what is the future role of unions? What may be said of the role of unions? Will unions play a substantial role in developing the future labor force? Perhaps. But it will require major refocusing. Let us examine the work of a union organizer, David Rolfe, and his initiative for establishing the $15 per hour minimum wage in Seattle. Rolf had directed a unionized 74,000 home care workers in Los Angeles. From there, he went on to organize fast food workers in Seattle. Membership had declined from 6,000 to a mere 1,200. And he was convinced that the American Labor Union and the American labor movement was on its deathbed. Rolf realized that with the diminished numbers, there would be little hope of achieving successful collective bargaining in the traditional mode. He thereby organized a coalition of non-union workers with similar employment objectives. A current mayoral election at that time offered a unique opportunity. His 11,000-member SeaTac Hospitality Union was insufficient, and he had to expand his potential electorate. He used professional union organizers who went door to door gathering the support for the 15-hour agenda. His was a non-traditional form of bargaining, using business leaders and union members to achieve a united goal. Upon election day, his chosen candidate for mayor won, and so did fast food workers and all other segments of the city seeking a $15 per hour wage. What a few thousand union workers could not achieve, 100,000 additional non-union workers did. This was a new and unorthodox modality of creating unified worker solidarity. An extension of this modality has been adopted by the AFL-CIO and its organization of a 3.2 million non-union worker membership called Working America. This movement, financially supported by the AFL-CIO, recruits the support of progressive workers by going door to door and obtaining votes for progressive candidates at election time. The union thereby gains the support for progressive programs such as minimum wage, universal health care, and Medicaid expansion. Persons who conduct these door-to-door, quote, front porch focus groups are selected from the local community to simply obtain the additional support for their labor objectives. Actual union membership is not sought. Let us now turn to the question of automation and artificial intelligence. Automation and artificial intelligence are having a major impact on the current and future workforce. Automated factories and warehouses, driverless trucks, grocery shopping by computer, Zoom education, Zoom business meetings, and yes, even Zoom churches. We are quickly becoming a community and a nation of Amazons. But then there are those there is sectors that lack computers, Wi-Fi, internet, and with the current virus, we even are experiencing library deserts. Society is forming a new class of elite, those who have computer access and those who do not, who cannot afford such services. I would like to introduce you to Sam, the robot. I've heard that there is someone, a television celebrity, who is interested in building a special wall. Please, please, don't tell him about Sam. Sam is an automated and artificial intelligence robot capable of laying 10,000 bricks a day, the equivalent of the day work load of 10 laborers. Here's a picture of Sam. I've got this from the Global Construction Review. For only $500,000, you too can have Sam as a household guest. Sam uses lasers for precision workmanship. Now, I mentioned Sam in terms of automation and artificial intelligence, only to give one example of what artificial intelligence is capable of doing. We've also already mentioned robot-started truck fleets. We have meat-packing robot butchers, and there was even an article I read recently of having robots doing minor surgery, sutures and the like. So what is the future of job searching? Kai-Fu Lee, in a pre-virus book, AI Superpowers, states, and this is very troubling, quote, within 10 to 20 years, we will be technically capable of automating 40 to 50% of jobs in the United States. We'll see a larger pool of unemployed workers competing for even smaller pools of jobs, forcing them into part-time or gig economy work that lacks any benefits. By 2030, employers will need 20 to 25% fewer employees, equal to 30 to 40 million displaced workers in the United States. Harari predicts the creation of, quote, a useless class of people who can never generate enough economic value to support themselves. Jessica Bratter, in a book previously cited, describes colonies of aged 60-plus workers who live in their third-wheelers and fruitlessly follow the crops or seasonal packing employment. They hope that they can outlive their vehicles. They are the American precariat. What has happened to the American sense of work with dignity? Today's labor is evolving. As Kai-Fu Lee notes in his book, AI Superpowers, there are labor/professional categories that demonstrate future employment replacement risks. These are divided into both the cognitive and physical labor sectors. He projects higher safety levels for cognitive persons, those that favor a demonstrated creative or strategy-based characteristics. These would include social workers, CEOs, criminal defense attorneys, whereas those in the same cognitive sector, but in the danger zone, would include tax preparers, customer service reps, insurance and justice, and radiologists. He also discusses those involved in physical employment,
who would be more secure in areas requiring high dexterity and work in unstructured environments. These would include physical therapists, elderly home care workers, dog trainers. Meanwhile, those in physical-oriented areas with less job security would include such occupations as tellers, cooks, truck drivers, and assembly workers. It is obvious that while some future occupations might be more secure, be they cognitive or physical, they may differ substantially in financial remuneration depending on the special skills requirements. Today's computer, combined with communication facilities, allow for business, legal, educational, and yes, even religious services to be conducted nationally or even internationally. And we've recognized just recently that we do have people in Europe that are tuning in to Thomas Jefferson's presentations. Your next home purchase may be arranged by someone speaking over a telephone or computer connection with a unique Asian accent. What are the methods that are suggested for confronting future labor changes? Well, there are a few. These include retraining, apprenticeships, reduction of work hours, and redistribution of labor. But unfortunately, all these also have their own limitations. Let's take, for example, retraining. Retraining is dependent on the trainee's existing work skills and experience. I like to think that you're never going to make an auto mechanic out of Joe Brennan. He lacks all work skills and experience in that particular area. They also include physical abilities, computer skills, availability of work opportunities. Let's look at apprenticeship, as is a common practice in Germany. This requires workplace availability, the discussions with local unions, and may demand eventual relocation. Reduction of work hours. Another adaptation of a European practice. Some European workplaces have only 4-day work weeks. These require as indicated, these actually can not decrease the production levels. However, American fast food workers recognize that such intentions for reducing work hours usually coincides with salary reduction, and for them, it is either take it or leave it, or find another job. Finally, there is the redistribution of labor, which means that the worker must relocate to wherever the artificial intelligence determines. Currently, there are a number of local auto workers whose homes and family are in another state. They must work here in Kentucky during the week and commute back home to another state over the weekend. Obviously, these are four common labor practices which have been frequently suggested for the future adaptation, but none of these present an easy solution. In some instances, unions have imposed split salaries, meaning that the most recently hired may work side by side with a fellow worker, but for half the salary. Universal basic income. Andrew Yang made a special appearance in the Democratic debates and proposed a financial wealth redistribution of $1,000 a month, a universal basic income, or a variation of the guaranteed minimum wage. At the time, it seemed absurd until the federal government distributed what I call Donald dollars, and workers received $1,200 to cover wage losses. The legislators thought that this would be sufficient to take care of a lot of workers' monthly needs, but it obviously did not. Critics argue that such a practice, if continued, would create a leisure society of workers who are unmotivated to return to their employment. Some countries have attempted their own experiment with mixed results. So what is the future of work, the workplace, and human dignity? To summarize, there is the unmentioned and serious consideration underlying all that we have discussed. In effect, the effect of joblessness and our understanding of what constitutes human dignity as related to work. Our culture has impressed upon us that one's sense of self-pride or dignity comes through the occupational position one holds, the profession one represents, the education one has. What happens in a society where joblessness becomes prevalent, where robots or automation displaces human labor? Does this create a society and a social category that Harari has called the worthless class? What does this say of a society where robots rule? They do not strike and can put in a 24-hour workday. Robots will continue to operate as long as they have energy. Finally, how does this reality confront our Unitarian values of promoting human dignity? I would like to close today's service with a few more words taken from Harari. If we manage to combine a universal economic safety net, one with strong communities and meaningful pursuits, losing our jobs to algorithms might actually turn out to be a blessing. Losing control of our lives, however, is a much scarier scenario. Notwithstanding the danger of mass unemployment, what we should worry about even more is the shift in authority from humans to algorithms, which might destroy the remaining faith in the liberal story and open the way to the rise of digital dictatorship. As we all know, this is
going to be a long weekend. I hope everyone will take the precautions, using masks, washing hands, staying at a distance. We all know that we are all very, very vulnerable to this virus. I hope everyone will be here next week when hopefully the message will be far more positive and enriching than today's message on labor. But as one television host said, it is what it is. Thank you. Goodbye.